Welcome to Athlon U. My name is Braden Gall. You can follow me on the internet at Braden Gall.
And I'm Stephen Lasson. You can also find me on the internet, athlonsports.com, for all of your college football preseason, in-season wishes, desires, needs at athlonsports.com, at athlonsteven on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Stephen L. CFB.
All right. ACC Dream Road Trip. By the way, Stephen, these Dream Road Trips sweeping the podcast world. People are stealing our ideas left and right. But as long as you credit us, that's cool. I'm cool with that. Make sure you're on the YouTube page there. Make sure you thumbs up, notifications turned on, turn on those little bells. If you're on the podcast app of choice, make sure you write a review. Give us 5 stars. If you do not give us 5 stars, you are a
hater.
That's right. Look at you. You're learning. You're learning. So obviously, that's another way to consume the product. If you want to, you can hang out and watch the show if you want as well. The ACC Dream Road Trip, but we will include Notre Dame, correct?
That is correct. We are including Notre Dame in our Dream ACC road trip. I thought, and I texted with you about this beforehand, I figured we'd probably work them in somewhere given their ACC games, but they're sort of halfway in the ACC, right? So we had to count them here. Is that fair?
So I did half of the exercise with Notre Dame. I got them in one time instead of
Same
2
here.
times. The rules are, of course, you have to see every team in the conference. You can only see that team a maximum of 2 times, but you have to see all teams, including Notre Dame in this case. And you can only see any teams at the same stadium 1 time. So you can get a home game and a road game for the best teams in a league if you're doing this at home and following along the take-home game of ACC Dream Road Trip. We got some start times for the college football playoff coming up. We got some news around Nico, and the NFL draft is starting this weekend. You've got a Stella shirt on. Here we go. So Cam Ward's going to be the number 1 pick. I just left the Titans press conference, actually. I cover them locally here. The Titans basically said, hey, we have reached a consensus, and we're not going to trade the pick. But you're going to have to tune in on Thursday to figure out who that is. Doing their best job to help out Roger Goodell, old Raj there, keep ratings up on Thursday. But Cam Ward's going to be the pick. The more interesting thing, Stephen, that I wanted to ask you about is it feels like there's growing consensus that the rest of these quarterbacks, that there is no consensus, that all these guys could fall. All of them could be in the 2nd or 3rd round, the way the Kenny Pickett draft, sorry to bring that up for you, took place a couple of years ago. I wouldn't be surprised I think Shador's going to go in the 1st round. But talking to folks, man, I like if you told me Quinn Ewers, Tyler Shuck, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, like the difference of opinions on these players. I can't remember the last time we had this many differing opinions on these players, Lasso. I don't know about you.
I think the interesting thing is every time when I look at the mock drafts and you go Giants, Saints, and if one of those 2 takes a quarterback and if one of them doesn't, like what happens if they get past it? Like the Raiders are in there as well. So just seeing like where these guys are going to fall. And to your point, there seems to be a consensus that however you want to order them after Cam Ward is up for debate. Jackson Dart's stock has grown tremendously throughout the offseason. So as always, quarterbacks are my area of intrigue for
I think it's going back down. And a lot of the conversation that I've had and that you're reading out there, and I had these conversations back at the Senior Bowl, were that like, well, but the offense is the offense, and he has so far to go from a system standpoint and like a technique standpoint. Kiffy's not doing his quarterbacks any favors with how he's coaching them and what the offense does. That's a real thing that NFL scouts are talking about. It's why Tyler Shuck has moved so fastly up boards, because he's got the size and the athleticism. He was hurt all the time. I think Jalen Milroe is fascinating because of his pure God-given ability, which is what everybody talks about. And then you're like, well, but
yeah,
he's a project, needs to be right in the right system. Will Howard is underrated, I think, in this draft class. My guy, who I think could be the best quarterback in the whole draft class. And I know this is crazy to say because he might be like the 7th quarterback taken. You want to take a guess?
That's Kyle McCord, isn't
Kyle
it?
McCord is my boy. Kyle McCord is my guy. Is it crazy to say that Kyle McCord could be the best quarterback in this draft class?
I seen somebody compare him to Brock Purdy, I think, this week. So, I guess I could see that. That seems like a pretty fair comparison. My guess is that he will not end up as the best quarterback in this class, but I don't think it's crazy to think that he is perhaps a little underrated. And also, I go back to, I mean, he was great at Syracuse. Also, don't think he was quite as bad as maybe some made him out to be at Ohio State
Oh,
either.
no. As a first-year starter with way better than people thought at Ohio State. I do think there's a lesson, though, for us college football folks. And I'm curious if you think it's real or not, because Anthony Richardson plays one season, and his physical skills get him drafted in the top 5. There's an old school. Was it Bill Parcells that said, like, basically, I want quarterbacks who've played a lot of games, And there's something to be said for a quarter, like Cam Ward, for example, has played a ton of football. There's something to be said about a guy in particular at one place. But Brock Purdy you mentioned Brock Purdy, and this got me thinking. Like, he played in a pro-style offense on a pro-style-ish franchise. He was a high-level recruit, and he stuck there and played all 4 years, right? Didn't he play all 4 years?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, there's something to be
Yeah.
said about a guy who's played 30. He's had 30 starts or 40 starts. There's something to be said about these guys that have had that much starting opportunity. And, like, Tyler Shuck is like 112 years old, and he started like 57 games in college. So he's got a chance. I just know. Do you think that's still a good theory around quarterback evaluation, that, all things considered equally, I'll take the guy who's played a ton. Bo Nix has played a ton of football.
It's a good question. I think, and this is a boring answer, it's almost like it's case by case basis. It's kind of hard it's almost to put this into words, because I think when you talk about Cam Ward, the thing that always intrigues me is the incarnate word to Washington State to Miami jump. He was a starter all those years. He got better, different circumstances, different offenses, took no time to blend into those offenses and be very productive. Like Arch Manning could start, whatever it is, 16 games this year, and he would end up under 20 starts if he was to go to the NFL draft next year. So, I mean, boring answer, Braden, but I think it's kind of a case by case basis on these guys. One question I did want to ask you, and because I know you've been around the Titans a lot, the quarterback tax, is that causing us, and especially when it comes to mocking quarterbacks for mock draft purposes, did our evaluations of Dart, Shuck, some of these guys just get skewed because it's the off season? We're thinking teams are going to take the quarterbacks too high, or these guys maybe aren't worth those picks, but they're getting drafted in that spot because they are quarterbacks. I'd be curious to know what you think of Dart, Shuck in that regard.
If you're talking about the other, like, I think there's a quarterback tax writ large. Like, I think it's just across the board. Like, if Cam Ward is actually the 12th or 15th or 18th best player on the board, well, he's going to move up because quarterbacks move up. And that's the tax you're talking about. And that's why the Titans have to take him at number 1 if they want him. If they think he's too good. I mean, I don't think he would have gone. I think he would have been right in the middle of last year's, like, 6-player draft class, quarterback class. So I don't think he's as bad as some folks like to make him out to be, but I also don't think he's the savior and the elite number 1 overall pick that some Titans fans want you to believe. I would have taken him 4th probably last year. Maybe, I mean, Drake. I am partial to Drake May. I had questions about Jaden Daniels' ability to survive in the NFL playing that style of football. I still do. And then Caleb was, always number 1 in my board. So I think it's tough. I think for the other guys, I think it's two different things. It's both things we've already mentioned, though, which is that there's little weird oddities about each of these guys that otherwise keep them from being like first-round grades. I think all of them are going to go outside of the, like, Shedeur Sanders played in everybody says this in response when I say I don't like the system he played in, but, like, everyone's like, why? It's Shermer. He's an NFL coach. It's like, no, his system was terrible. The offensive line was terrible. He took like 100 sacks. He's a tough kid. He's a smart kid. He's a savvy kid. I like watching him play, but I think he's closer to like the Steelers at 21 than he is like the Giants at 3. So I think he's falling. But I think there's some weird things about his game that are just a little different, a little undersized, lacks some polish in some certain areas. And I think that's the case for all these guys. Will Howard, Tyler Shuck, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe. There is a tax there, and otherwise they might all be third-round picks. So maybe the tax pushes them into the second round. Jackson Dart, but otherwise all these guys have sort of a weird glaring flaw. Like health and injury with Tyler Shuck, the weird intermediate passing game and the accuracy for Jalen Milroe, the sort of the offense and the processing and the mechanics of Jackson Dart. Quinn Ewers, it's like, why does he miss throws? Like, why is he just like, he's not very mobile. He sits in the pocket. He throws the ball. He's got a great arm. Why does he not have bigger numbers? Why hasn't he been more productive? Why did he make some of the mistakes he made? McCord, I don't know why he's not I think it's maybe because he can't run at all. That maybe why McCord is projected where he is. So I think it's kind of a combination of everything. Did that answer your question at all?
It did. I wanted to mention something on Quinn Ewers. I do think and have wondered how much the arm injury or whatever, the oblique, however you want to word it, injury he had this season impacted his numbers, because I think there were some kind of like side by sides that I saw, like his arm angles looked a little different, and you could maybe question if he was at 100% all year. Just as a point of intrigue here, Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports, who I think does a great job covering the NFL draft, he's got Cam Ward as his 13th best player in the draft. Yeah. Shedeur Sanders at 24. And then
honestly, I think that's
Dart are further down.
I think that's about right. Like 13 and 24 is about right.
So if Braden Gall is calling the shots in the Titans war room, is he taking Cam Ward, or is he getting Hunter Carter?
I've been on the record. I would trade if I am the Titans or a team looking for a quarterback. If I have that many problems that I'm the number one pick, meaning my roster sucks, I am trying to trade back twice. I'm trading back with the Giants, and then I'm trading back again to like 9 with the Saints, or 12 or 18 or 16. Like, I'm moving back twice, and I'm taking as many picks as possible because I think the best players in this draft are between like 30 and 100. There's so many good players between 30 and good offensive linemen, great tight ends, great receivers, great running back class, one of the best running back classes ever. A couple of great linebackers in there. The edge class in the first round is phenomenal. It drops off pretty fast. I just think it's going to be an interesting draft after the first pick. Like, how good is Abdul Carter? Travis Hunter is a completely rare and one-of-a-kind prospect. I've talked to NFL personnel that are like completely sold that he's a corner. And then I talked to somebody else who's completely sold that he's the number one receiver in this class. And then you ask him, like, well, but can he play both? And everyone's like, I don't know.
It's going to be harder, obviously, in the NFL to play both ways, but I think he would be just the pure number one player on my board, and then Abdul Carter would be second, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
If I was doing that.
Yeah. Honestly, Ashton Genty might be the best player in the draft. Tyler Warren might be the best player in the draft, but they just, those positions aren't going to get drafted that highly. So, okay, I just, look, I came from a Titans press conference. The draft is here. They're set. They're taking Cam Ward. I will say, I think Cam Ward's skill set is super interesting. Because he likes to, he can be a little loose with the football at times, whether he's scrambling or throwing. That makes for entertaining football if you're covering him. He's got a huge arm, super confident kid, super, not cocky, but like super confident. So I think he makes for really good entertainment. Like, to have him in my market, like in my city, I'm excited about that because I think it's going to be fun to cover him. I don't know if he's going to be great or not. I think he's Baker Mayfield.
You would take that though, right?
I think that's the line. If you think he's less than Baker Mayfield, you shouldn't take him at 1. If you think he is Baker Mayfield or better, Baker had like 40 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, 70% completion percentage last year. Now he's also been on 4 teams, but I just think he's very similar to Baker Mayfield, stylistically, confidence, attitude. He's sort of a daredevil, likes to throw things around a little bit. Like, I just think he's got a lot of Baker Mayfield in his game, and I think that's a compliment most of the time, and every now and then. He grabs his twig and berries against Kansas. So Baker Mayfield had so many funny moments in college.
Yes. I was going to end our conversation on quarterbacks with suggesting that, if you're a team like the Titans, and while you may not think he's the number one player, that being Cam Ward, if you think he's within range and you get it right, you found your franchise quarterback for the next 12 years. And so many teams get stuck in that quarterback purgatory. And for the Titans, if he's that close, you take him, he hits, you're in much better shape than some of these other franchises.
Isn't there just as good a chance, though, that he's like Nico? And I use that as a joke and a segue.
He doesn't have his handlers, right?
Well, I use that as a joke and a segue because Nico was basically the number one overall pick for the Tennessee Volunteers. right? Like they
Right.
Arch was in the same class, and Arch is better, but they were all in on Nico. He was the savior. They went and tried to change state laws, as we talked about last week, for Nico, and now Joey Aguilar, baby. Joey Aguilar, win the Heisman, gonna win the Heisman. Joey Aguilar better than Nico Iamaleava. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But the reason I say the reason I say that is that the number one pick rarely lives up to the expectation of what we think about the number one pick, right?
Yeah,
And it's
that's a
not
good
that
point.
it's not that much different with 5-star quarterbacks. Like, look at the picks the last 15 years in the NFL draft. Like, Matt Stafford was a 5-star number one quarterback in the country, number one overall pick. He's lived up to it. Joe Burrow's lived up to it. Cam Newton, I would say, lived up to it to some degree. Kyler Murray's been really good, but hasn't won anything. Otherwise, it's a lot of like Baker Mayfield type players, like guys that haven't made the. Jared Goff looks like a good player now, but he didn't for a while. So I think there's a lot more. Like they kind of are more like second round picks or late first round picks. I just think that there's a lot more of Cam. If Cam Ward ends up being like a Baker Mayfield solid player, I think there's a lot more of that than you realize at the number one pick. There's, Trevor Lawrence is all-world prospect, college championship quarterback in first year. And because of Urban Meyer and because of some injuries, like, he hasn't really panned out. And he was a surefire prospect as you could get at number one.
The flip side is you get stuck with a revolving door like the Giants have seen with, what was it, Tommy DeVito and others last year. Daniel Jones didn't work out. You get stuck, like I said, in that purgatory. So you take a chance, and while if your line is the Baker Mayfield line or Jared Goff, I think that's like an above average starter in the NFL. And I think a lot of teams would take it right now.
Yeah, no question. I would absolutely take it. They're just not. I don't know. I just don't think they're as good as people think they are. Like, in general, all those players.
I think what you're trying to get at is you're thinking as the number one pick, they would come in, they would dominate, become the fifth best quarterback in the NFL or whatever, and that may not be true.
Who are the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now? Like, guys that are the system. It's Lamar Jackson, it's Josh Allen, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Joe Burrow, and who am I missing? I'm missing one. Why am I missing one? It's definitely those 4, though. And none of them were the number one pick except for Joe Burrow.
I mean, Jaden Daniels is probably in that conference. Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is not anywhere near the system. Jalen Hurts is a part of a system.
You asked top 5 quarterbacks. That's where I was.
Yeah,
going.
the guys that are the system.
That's
right?
fair.
Because to bring this back to college football, like, we didn't have any guys that were the system last year, which is the reason that we have the quarterback draft class we have right now.
Wasn't Cam Ward the system, though?
Maybe. Kyle McCord was electric. Jaden Daniels was the system at LSU. Like, he was. Caleb Williams was the system.
Yeah. Ward has got to be the closest.
Probably.
Dart.
I mean, we all know that Miami doesn't. We all know that Miami doesn't have a system. So you're right.
They just didn't play defense, right?
I'm kidding. Right. I just think there are quarterbacks who are really good in the NFL, and then there are quarterbacks. Like, I think everybody's a system quarterback except for the guy who is the system. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah.
And I think that's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I think that's Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. And that's it, right? Unless I'm missing a 5th one. Who am I missing? It's always been 5. But I think those are the 4 that, like, you don't build the system, they are the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
definitely
total
not,
sense.
and it's definitely not Jalen Hurts or Jared Goff or Matt Stafford or anybody else.
My nomination of Jalen Hurts was more of if you were just ranking them, not necessarily the system.
Where would he see? Now I want to get into a discussion about where Jalen Hurts should rank and why he's outside the top 10.
I actually just pulled up.
I'm kidding.
I was just trying to throw names out there to help you out, but yeah. Fair enough.
Well, if it doesn't come quickly, then I guess maybe there's just not somebody there that I'm. I mean, Aaron Rodgers would have been the system, but he's not anymore.
Fair.
So maybe it is just those four at the top, and then kind of there's a group of quality players after that are really good players, but you need a good team, good systems, good coaching, good everything around you to be successful. And frankly, I'm curious to find out what college football looks like this year in this situation, because I think there's a lot of guys that could develop into the system. And Nico, the reason I brought him up is that he did not. He did not become the thing that drove the offense. Josh Heupel's offense is still the thing that will make the other guy successful, the next guy. Nico didn't do anything. He didn't make the system better. And now he's going to go to UCLA, and we'll see what happens with his brother, I guess, right? Both going to go.
Yeah.
Both going to go to UCLA. Not a surprise at all that that's where they both ended up.
No, it's not. And from the beginning, it was the most obvious fit for Nico, just given where you're in the spring transfer portal window where not a lot of teams are looking for quarterbacks. So given that it was his home state, UCLA had a pretty good quarterback in Joey Aguilar, but Nico was an upgrade over that. And I think there's certainly a buzz factor for UCLA that bringing him in certainly raises your floor, raises the buzz for UCLA. It also, like you said, his brother is also going to end up there, and Arkansas is not very happy right now about the I think transfer of Madden to UCLA. They think they're going to try to claw back apparently some funds and NIL dollars. So a little spicy, battle there potentially.
We talked about it last week. He decommitted from UCLA and signed with Arkansas, having never visited. I wonder why.
Yeah, just think about if you're from California, stepping foot onto campus in Arkansas, and calling the Hogs is the first thing that breaks out when you hit Fayetteville. So,
some good barbecue though.
Yeah, I mean, on the Nico thing, Braden. I mean, it's an upgrade for UCLA. Aguilar, I think, has been good, but I think Nico has a chance to be better. Does it help UCLA a ton? I mean, to be honest with you, he's stepping into a worse offensive line, running game, and receiver situation than he had at Tennessee. And he has a first-time offensive coordinator in Tino Sunseri. So there is a lot of question marks with UCLA. They're better with Nico, but at the same time, I don't know that their projected win total really changed a whole lot here.
No, they didn't. What's crazy is I don't know if Tennessee's win total. I mean, like, it probably goes down a win or two the second Nico transfers. I don't know if it goes back up with Aguilar. So I think you're probably still sitting at like a 7 or 8 win team, and that's not a playoff team. If they somehow figure it out, maybe they can challenge. I just think there's too many good teams in the SEC that are surging into this season, namely South Carolina, Florida. I think Alabama's better. They get Tennessee at home this year. I think they win that game. So I just think there's too many good teams they have to jump to get back into the playoff, in my opinion.
I think it was going to be hard to get back to the playoff regardless, just because they lost Dylan Sampson, the turnover on defense, the offensive line had a lot of new faces too. So even with Nico, and I think he gave them a chance to get there. I think if you pre-transfer, I think Tennessee's win total was like 9.5. I think it's like down to 8.5 now. That seems about right. Going to Alabama, Florida, you get Georgia. Those seem like probably losses.
I think they were 9-3 with Nico. I think we talked about this last week. I think they were
agree.
9-3.
Yeah.
And so, does it cost you a game or two that he's not there? Probably. All right, quickly, how much do you care about these start times for the college football playoff games this year? You've got one game on New Year's Eve, the Cotton Bowl. That's 6:30 p.m. Central Standard God's Time. And then you have an 11 a.m. kickoff in the Orange Bowl Central Time. And then the Rose Bowl moved their time slot to 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time on New Year's Day. Then you got the Sugar Bowl. So that's your 4 playoff quarterfinals. Then you come back on the 8th and the 9th on Thursday and Friday. And you get the Fiesta and the Peach. And then the championship game is January 19th, which is a full 10 or 11 days later. So interesting stuff. I don't know. Does that any of that mean anything to you?
Hang on. I'm checking outside, and it does not appear that the world has ended, that the Rose Bowl time moved. So honestly, Braden, line the ball up. Tell me what time the game is on, and I'm going to watch it. I know it is a big deal, obviously, for the Sugar Bowl. To get that sunset, it's a little bit of tradition for college football, but it's still on January 1st. It's still in the same window. I think I might flip the Sugar Bowl and Orange Bowl, to be honest with you. I know January is a little bit cooler, but noon in Miami on January 1st seems like it might be a little steamy.
You can't have an 11 o'clock local time kickoff, though. That's if you put the Sugar Bowl at noon Eastern, it's 11 a.m. local. At least it's a noon Eastern time kickoff for the Orange Bowl in Miami. At least.
I think. Well, I guess that hour might make
And
a
it's
difference.
warmer. It's probably warmer in Miami than it is in New Orleans. No.
Well, you got the dome, so
Well, I
you'd
guess
have.
that's true.
Yeah, so that's why you would be baking out there in Miami. But yeah, I mean, I think the other one intrigue about the schedule is the fact that the season ends on the 19th. Like it was a day later last year, and
Yeah.
just thinking future schedules, it's going to be even later.
Yeah.
So one of many obstacles that college football is still trying to sort out is the powers that be are meeting to perhaps decide if seating is changed this year or it stays status quo.
So basically, the sun sets in the late, early third quarter instead of the early fourth quarter. That's going to be the difference for the Rose Bowl. Okay, all right, cool. All right, let's go to Stanford at Hawaii, week 0. We're both there, buddy. ACC Dream Road Trip. You guys know the rules. Of course, you have to see every single team plus Notre Dame in this exercise. You cannot see a team more than twice, and you cannot go to a stadium more than once. I assume since week 0 is free, it's gratis. Stanford at Hawaii. We're going to the islands, baby. Let's go.
Oh, of course. I am. I'm going to use this 30 seconds that Braden promised me to talk about Hawaii because Micah Ahedo, the new quarterback for Hawaii, is on my breakout list. I think the Rainbow Warriors are going to potentially break through this year in the Mountain West and make a bowl game. So there you go. That's why I want to go see Stanford at Hawaii.
Are they still Rainbow Warriors or are they just the Warriors?
I think they are still the Rainbow Warriors.
Oh, okay. Week number 1. This is honestly the ACC schedule in week number 1 might be the best of any conference. Honestly, like there are 5 or 6 legitimately good and interesting games, and Cal versus Oregon State, which is also interesting for other reasons. South Carolina, Virginia Tech wasn't even considered, and that's a really interesting football game. Syracuse, Tennessee, very interesting.
The Beamer Bowl there with South Carolina, Virginia Tech.
Yeah. And not even on my radar. So really good games by the ACC in week number 1. Hat tip. Where are you going?
I'm going to Death Valley. I'm going to LSU at Clemson. A showdown between 2 probably preseason top 10 teams and a fantastic battle of quarterbacks, Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier. Also, this has been the bug for Brian Kelly. He cannot win a week 1 game. He's lost, of course, to Florida State. He fell short against USC. But with this game in Clemson, a huge chance for LSU to pick up a victory. So I am going to Clemson to see LSU at Clemson.
Well, and it's not even Brian Kelly. I think it's 5 straight season openers that LSU has lost, which they believe goes back to the Bo Pelini Bowl where Mississippi State during the pandemic put up 700 yards of offense with Mike Leach.
Shout out to KJ Costello, right?
KJ Costello, thank you. I knew it was a Stanford transfer. Look, Georgia Tech at Colorado is really good. ECU, NC State, sort of in the in the state rivalry there. We mentioned South Carolina, Virginia Tech, Bama at Florida State. That's a huge one for Florida State. That's a true road game for Bama. That's interesting. LSU at Clemson was the number 2 pick for me because I'm going to South Florida, baby. Give me Notre Dame at Miami. Catholics versus convicts. Let's go. Both guys replacing a lot. Both teams with top 10 aspirations. I totally understand why you are going to the Death Valley Bowl, but I'm going Notre Dame at Miami. And honestly, it dictated a lot of other decisions because if you pick Miami at home there, you miss out on a lot of other good games.
Yeah. This was, I will say, that this is our third one. I thought the ACC was probably the most challenging. Just trying to juggle what seems to be a clear top tier of teams and trying to get them on home and road was not easy. But I love the Notre Dame at Miami game because it's week 1. We're going to learn a lot about both teams. I'm excited to see CJ Carr as the starting quarterback for Notre Dame, and of course Carson Beck in his debut for Miami. So a fantastic selection on Sunday night.
Week number 2, where are you going?
I'm going to East Lansing to see Boston College at Michigan State. This is our Spartans. Aiden Childs, second year as the starter for Michigan State, and Jonathan Smith. I'm interested to see how far they've developed, but also for Boston College. Bill O'Brien did a nice job last season. A lot of pieces back. They're going to be obviously replacing a couple guys who are off to the NFL. But it's kind of just an interesting non-conference battle in East Lansing. So give me Boston College at Michigan State.
Also, the right time of year to go to East Lansing. Like, it's a nice, beautiful time to go to a game there. And I am with you. I am going Boston College at Michigan State. I'm right there with you. Just a fascinating, bizarro, like 1987 matchup. Like, just like really good football in 1987 for both these teams. And it just feels very strange and odd, but I like it. I like this matchup. Blue collar teams and coaches. Like, I just think it was interesting. I thought it was one of the better matchups from a like, where am I going to see Boston College? Right. I thought this was a good matchup here. I think Boston College is not the bottom tier of the ACC, but I think they're in the middle. So this is an interesting game with, our Spartans. So,
yeah, I have another game where I considered Boston College, and it makes an obvious kind of fit here. But I think early in the season, coming off the success of last year, maybe this is more about just seeing Michigan State, honestly, given our affinity for the Spartans there.
In the ACC road trip episode. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Talked about Hawaii, talked about Michigan State. We're off to a good start. Yeah.
That tells you all you need to know about where the ACC is at.
Sorry. Yeah.
Week number 3, where are you going?
Going to South Bend to see Texas A&M at Notre Dame. This was a massive matchup last season in week 1. Notre Dame went down to College Station, got the big victory. This time it's in South Bend. Can the Aggies return the favor? Fascinated, of course. Notre Dame will have Miami and then A&M in week 3. So 2 significant opportunities for the Fighting Irish to pick up wins, and then for A&M, a chance for this team to kind of grow up a little bit, go on the road, and get a big victory too.
So it wasn't against the rules. So you totally followed the rules. So I'm not messing with you here, but I do think it's cheating in this particular exercise if you do not use Notre Dame in an ACC game. I feel like. So I did not. I stuck hardcore to the rules and did not put on any Notre Dame games with other teams. I have Notre Dame at Miami. That's an ACC game. So
shame on me.
If you out there listening wanted to take the easy path and just pick really good Notre Dame games against non-ACC teams, then you may do that. It's not against the rules. But you know what? I'm not angry about it. I'm just disappointed. I'm going to the backyard brawl. Pittsburgh at West Virginia. Give me the best game Pittsburgh can possibly play every year.
Yeah.
It's the most interesting that Pittsburgh can ever be. No disrespect to you, Pitt. Or when they play Penn State, I guess. Also great game. But when they play West Virginia, especially on the road, awesome. Morgantown, awesome. It's the best Pittsburgh can be. It's the best. So I'm going to the backyard brawl. Give it to me.
Always a ton of hard feelings between these two teams, but also just thinking back to the past, that Rich Rodriguez and that game that cost West Virginia a chance to play for the national championship. So his first season at West Virginia, getting a shot at Pitt at home, I'm sure a lot of motivation there for the Mountaineers, but Pitt can play spoiler in that one too.
Is that Pat Bostic? Was he the quarterback there? No, Tyler Palco.
Was it Bill Stoll?
Can I name any other random Pittsburgh quarterbacks? Who was it? Who was the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh as a 34-point underdog?
It was Pat Bostic.
Nailed it.
Yes. His stat line.
You made me doubt myself.
His stat line that night was 10 of 19 for 67 yards and 2 interceptions.
Was it 13-9 or something?
13-9. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the most famous football games of all time.
Yeah.
Pat Bostic.
But LaShawn McCoy was awesome in that game. He had over 140 yards rushing. So,
oh man, Pat Bostic. You know what his career touchdown to interception ratio is in college football? 9 touchdowns and 19 interceptions for his career. And I remember his name. That's ridiculous. All right.
I believe he's also the Pitt Panthers radio host now too. So he's doing good work up there.
Yeah, I think I've done some interviews with him actually. Okay. Week number 4, I'm going SMU at TCU, the battle for the Iron Skillet in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Give me those two great rivals in the state of Texas. And honestly, it's very similar to Pittsburgh and West Virginia in the backyard brawl. It's almost as good as SMU can get in general because it's just so laced with inner city sort of debate and turmoil there. Lots of good games on SMU schedule. To be clear, like the problem was I couldn't find a way around some of the other matchups. So I thought SMU at TCU is a great time to go check out a great rivalry with two programs that should be pretty good this year. Both that's a pretty good game this year.
I'm going to go ahead and just tell you that you win the award for week 4 because I am going to Durham to see a little battle between rivals in the state of North Carolina, NC State at Duke. I want to see Darian Mensah and how far Duke has progressed, and also NC State. I think a pretty important year for Dave Dorn. 2 new coordinators, a lot of portal movement in and out. They had the game, getting to a bowl game, losing to East Carolina last year in the bowl game. So good, some early tests for NC State will give us a good idea to see where they are and also to see where Duke is at that point.
I really like that pick. Actually, that one was almost very much like I don't necessarily think SMU at TCU is that much better. It's better because of the rivalry, and SMU's maybe the best team of the 4. But like NC State at Duke is interesting. Like that's 2 teams that could be middle of the pack in the ACC. One of them who wins this game, especially if it's Duke, could find themselves in the top tier of this league. So I think it's a way more important game for Duke and NC State than people realize. I was very close to using that game. Very close to using that game. The next week, I'm gonna use Duke. Duke at Syracuse. Jerry McNamara versus Greg Paulus. Eric Devendorf versus John Shire. No, Duke at Cuse is interesting. It's an interesting game. Again, much like the one you're at the week before, it's Duke is fighting for respect at the top of the conference. Syracuse, much like NC State, is a proud program that has been good recently and is trying to stay relevant after a really good season. So Duke at Syracuse is an important game for both teams early in the year. So I'm going to Cuse, and I'm the concern there is the temperatures without air conditioning. In theory, in September in upstate New York could still be hot. So we'll see.
Yeah, so looks like you're wearing long sleeves today as we record this. I would encourage you probably to wear short sleeves on your trip up to the artist formerly known as the Carrier Dome up there. Also, 2 teams that surprised last year, both Duke and Syracuse, like the surprise teams in the ACC, some losses, obviously, but the 2 transfer quarterbacks are probably the biggest storyline there with Mensah and Ricky Collins. I am going to an ACC battle. I had to see this team twice, so this was just where it worked out.
Okay.
And I'm going to Winston-Salem to go see Georgia Tech and Wake Forest to see the Yellow Jackets. There was a couple of opportunities to catch the Yellow Jackets, but this was also an opportunity to see Wake Forest, Jake Dickert in his first year. But this is, for me, more about Georgia Tech.
Dude, Georgia Tech has an awesome schedule from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah.
Like they are going to have an interesting season one way or the other. Because I'm with you. I really wanted to get Georgia Tech in there twice. That was important to me. And you guys know they're my Jackets. I almost, I played basketball one night on my college visit with Joey Hamilton and Des White, and been a lifelong diehard Jacket fan ever since. My Jackets. But to this point, you've used them against Wake Forest on the road, which is of a game. Before this, we haven't even mentioned this. They will play at Colorado and host Clemson before they even get to this moment of the schedule. So Georgia Tech's schedule, and they're going to have a lot of other very interesting games, especially in Atlanta. Lots of really interesting games in Atlanta this year. So really, really interesting schedule for Georgia Tech. So
including the away from home game against Georgia in the Falcon Stadium to close out the year.
For the right to go to the playoff.
Okay. Kirby Smart calls timeout for the 500th time in overtime.
All right. Where are you going in week number 6?
Going to Tallahassee to see Miami at Florida State. So curious about Florida State and seeing where they are with all the changes, to see Thomas Castellanos and Gus Malzahn, see if they can work any magic offensively. For Miami at this point of the season, we'll have a pretty good idea about what Carson Beck is. But I think if you start thinking and looking at how Florida State's schedule plays out, they have the game against Alabama early. It's East Texas A&M, Kent State at Virginia. So we're probably not going to learn a whole lot from Florida State, but from the Alabama game to this game. But I think if you're Mike Norvell and you can pick off Miami, who's probably going to be picked in the preseason top 15, that could go a long way to helping some job security.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Where are we going to? Oh, I'm going Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech. Give me the. Was this like the? This is like an ACC championship game. I feel like 2006. I don't know. Give me Georgia Tech and hosting Virginia Tech. I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. I just think give me all the engineers in one building together, all the architects and engineers fighting on a football field, and great. I just think Atlanta is going to be a fun place to watch football this year. So I wanted to get there.
I am joining you. I am going to Virginia Tech Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech for Week 7, the Battle with the Techs. I don't know if you do you remember? I think it was Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech where there was lightning that hit Lee Corso's car. That game is this like? Do you remember this?
Why am I drawing a total blank on this? I feel like I'm drawing a total blank on this.
2001. Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech looks like they were supposed to play, and then that was the game. I think that was it canceled due to weather, but I think lightning hit Lee Corso's car, and I just thought about that because, of course, Lee Corso announced that he'll be retiring after the first game of
should have talked about that.
So, just somebody who's just been so legendary for college football coverage. Grew up watching him, so just had to get that one in there.
2000? You're in the year 2000. College football's preseason over, and thank goodness nobody got hurt, at least not too seriously. The biggest casualty after 5 weekend classic games appears to be ESPN broadcaster Lee Corso's rental car, which was this is on ESPN.com, which is like a very, very old version of the .com. The rental car was struck by lightning Sunday night during violent thunderstorms that forced the postponement of the BCA Classic. Georgia Tech at number 11, Virginia Tech. And if this is, in fact, the year 2000, that would have been Michael Vick, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. It was parked at the north end of Lane Stadium. So why do you remember anything about Lee Corso's rental car?
Because it got hit by lightning. So, that's why.
Oh, my God. Here's a quote from Chris Fowler. It started up, and he drove it a little bit before it just died, and he realized that it was his car that got hit. Lee got out, hitched a ride with some fans, and the car rental people brought him a new car. He hitched rides with some fans. Oh my God, I forgot all about that. Thank you for bringing that back.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that back to my life. I do appreciate you for that.
See the random information you can get by listening to the ACC Dream Road Trip.
Okay. All right, so you're with me then?
I am, yeah. Hopefully our rental car don't get struck by lightning.
So I was going to go in week 8, I was going to go to Georgia Tech at Duke. And then I realized I didn't have any North Carolina games. So I'm going to go to the Keenan Allen Bowl. That's right. If you know, you know. Former 5-star recruit played at North Carolina and Cal. I'm going North Carolina at Cal out on Tightwad Hill. Got to go to Berkeley for a party once a year, So give me North Carolina and Belichick, the most progressive coach in the history of football, going to the most conservative campus in all of America.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah, you like
that? I don't know if I have you beat here, but I like this game. I'm going up to the Dome.
Oh.
I am going to Pitt at Syracuse. Of course, this was the nightmare game for Kyle McCord last season in the Steel City. Obviously, he might be throwing touchdowns for the Steelers by this time next year. But Pitt at Syracuse, just an interesting game. Old Big East rivalry, now ACC rivalry.
Yeah, always looks good. When two old school rivals from another conference get together in a new conference, it always does feel right. I know that's weird, but it feels good. All right. So North Carolina and Cal, I realize it's not a super great game, but I had to see North Carolina, so that's the deal there. All right, week number 9. Where are you going?
I'm actually going to see North Carolina in week 9. I am going to Chapel Hill to see Virginia at North Carolina. Honestly, I did this exercise 3 times and had a hard time getting Virginia in a spot here. And so this one made sense. It's an old rivalry. By week 9, I would imagine that Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels look a lot better than week 1. Virginia, Tony Elliott, very much on the hot seat, interested in Chandler Morris, their transfer quarterback this year. So I think a little bit of intrigue for 2 old rivals getting together.
All right. I'm going NC State at Pitt. I don't know why I like this game. I don't even have a reason to explain it to you guys right now. But somehow, some way, I feel like this is a very evenly matched game between two teams that are fighting for bowl eligibility. NC State, and I think I had to get NC State in here. So there you go.
I mean, if you're looking for some sort of crazy connection, Bill Cowher, of course, he was the coach of the Steelers. He played at NC State, very famous alum of NC State. So there's your connection there, Braden. That's about the best I can do for you. No Lee Corso car rental stories there.
NC State at Pitt, Virginia at North Carolina, week number 9. Week number 10, where are you going?
All right, so I promise this week's going to have a lot better matchup. I am going
agreed.
to SMU. I am going to Miami at SMU to see what could be a play-in game for the ACC championship. Yeah. Rhett Lashley, of course, former Miami offensive coordinator, now in charge at SMU. So give me the Hurricanes at the Mustangs.
That is a fantastic football game. What probably should have been the ACC championship game last year. I am going Louisville at Virginia Tech. I gotta go to Lane Stadium. I gotta go to Blacksburg, and Louisville, Virginia Tech. I know Virginia Tech's not as good as SMU or Miami in this case, but I already used Miami twice. I had to see Louisville a second time. I love watching teams that are going to be favored and trying to win championships go on the road against teams that are pretty good in hostile environments. And Louisville at Virginia Tech is honestly, it's one of the best combination of stadium and team and matchup and quality in the entire conference. And I just hope Virginia Tech is better this year than maybe they look. They had high expectations last year. If they didn't reach them, I think they're going to be good this year, better this year. So Louisville at Virginia Tech.
My biggest regret of this road trip was not getting to Blacksburg for a game.
That's a problem.
That was one of the best
gorgeous
venues.
Campus.
Yeah. So that's a big miss on my part.
Okay. I have 2 of the last 4 are two. I'm just going to say this. 2 of the last 4 are the best games of the week of the season in the road trip. And the other 2 are to see 4 teams that I have to see.
Okay.
One of them's a great rivalry, though. So I'm going Wake Forest at Virginia. I have to get Virginia on the schedule, and I have to get Wake Forest on the schedule. They are possibly the 2 worst teams in the league, not named Stanford. So I thought, you know what? Let's put them on the board together. And that does cause some problems because you're not going to see Florida State at Clemson, for example, which maybe you're at. Syracuse at Miami could be interesting. SMU, BC. There's some interesting stuff in there. But I thought I didn't think there was enough good quality, meaningful football games. I thought getting Wake Forest and Virginia out of the way, no disrespect.
It's probably better to just, to punt that week, right? To see those 2 teams. I had a hard time with this week because I think I had used up Miami already with the Florida State in the SMU game. So it really limited where I could go. So I am going to Boston College to see Boston College play and host SMU. Of course, these 2 teams played in a bowl game a couple years ago. They played last year. I think there was a quote by Bill O'Brien after the game when they lost at SMU, said that SMU had some of the most foul-mouthed fans he'd ever heard. So, maybe BC can return the favor. I'm going to BC to see SMU.
It feels like an interesting use of seeing SMU.
That there was not. I kind of backed myself into a corner.
Chestnut Hill in November. Although a month earlier in October, nice foliage.
I like the cold weather, so I'm built for it.
I tend to agree with you. Where are you going week 12? Because this is one of the best ones the whole season. Are you going to be there with me?
I'm going to Louisville.
Yeah, baby.
Clemson at Louisville. Louisville, of course, won at Clemson last season. Clemson trying to return the favor, but also I think this game looms large just for positioning within the ACC. By this point of the season, we'll know just how good Miller Moss is going to be for this Louisville offense. So I got Clemson at Louisville for week 12.
I'm with you, man. I'm right there with you. I think if you look at Clemson's schedule, they have a lot of key games, but they get Syracuse at home, they get LSU at home, they get SMU at home, they get Florida State at home. You look at the road trip, it's kind of like, all right, they got to go to Georgia Tech, and they got to go to North Carolina. Those are 2 really tricky. They get Duke at home. They get almost all the big games in conference at home, other than those 2 I mentioned. This is maybe the biggest road test of the entire season for Clemson in the ACC in particular. The biggest road test Just stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. So,
Also on Friday night too.
oh, is
So
it
a
really?
little Friday night the showdown
Ooh,
for November 14th.
and that's like 2.5 hours up the road. I can be home in time to watch all the games the next day.
Exactly. That's a good Friday night road trip. Be back home to catch all the games on Saturday.
I mean, is there a tougher conference game on the road that they're going to face? I mean, I don't think there is. I mean, Georgia Tech might be better than Louisville. We don't know, but those are pretty even, right? Like those are the two tough ones. Otherwise, it's at Boston College, at North Carolina. Yeah,
I would go with Louisville and then
yeah,
Georgia Tech second.
yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't stun me if Georgia Tech beat Clemson that early in the season. I mean, they've
Yeah.
they've knocked off different. I mean, they knocked off Miami last year in Atlanta. So yeah,
Yeah.
nothing would surprise me there.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, where are you going next?
I am going to see two of college football's off-season most talked about teams, I guess. Going out to the Bay Area, Cal at Stanford, obviously rivalry impact, but who knows? Andrew Luck's out there in practice, taking some snaps, working with the team. I don't think he's going to sue for any eligibility yet, but Stanford with Frank Wright in charge this season, a lot of off-season turnover. Cal, they've lost their entire running back room. Perhaps some of the coaching hires this offseason have not been great. And just in general, the whole ACC rivalry thing. So,
Well, you've got a
Jimmy,
Lamborghini over there on the sideline in Ron Rivera. Is it a Lamborghini or is it a Ferrari? I can't remember what the collective said about Ron Rivera.
wasn't it a Ferrari?
If you have the Ferrari
Yeah.
sitting over there, you don't just leave it in the garage.
Yeah.
I'm there with you, man. Cal at Stanford. And I was trying to get Cal and Stanford out of the way and what would be the best performance of their season together against each other. And then I had to get North Carolina at Cal later on. But Cal at Stanford, I'm right there. The game, I'm with you. Is it big game? The big game. The big game. I'm there with you. Going to be a lot of fun. Going to be great. And at the time, again, two of the worst 4 or 5 teams in the league, so you might as well see them at the same time because that makes for the rivalry and the balance makes it a good game. So, all right, where are you going in the final week of the season?
I am going to what I think is the most underrated venue in the ACC. I am going to Carter Finley Stadium in NC State to see NC State hosting North Carolina. So I get to see Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels one more time, but also this rivalry because I used, Clemson earlier, couldn't get to Clemson, South Carolina, just not a ton of options here, but love the North Carolina at NC State rivalry.
So this is where one of the few things worked out in my favor because I wanted to see Notre Dame at Miami, and by not doing LSU Clemson, I freed myself up. I do think SMU at Clemson is interesting, very very interesting. Middle of the season, that's a game that obviously both of us we chose to go to lesser games in week number 8, but I wanted Clemson at South Carolina. The in-state hatred, the vitriol, it's as good a rivalry as there is in the sport, and this could be for a spot in the playoff. Like these might be, if you look at the rankings of this conference for the whole season, Stephen, it's not out of the question that this is the highest ranked football game of the year in the ACC. You could be looking at number 2 versus like number 7 at the potentially in this matchup. Now, I think Notre Dame, Miami in the beginning of the year will also be 2 top 10 teams. LSU, Clemson could be probably 2 top 10 teams. There's a good chance Clemson, South Carolina is 2 top 10 teams.
Totally agree. And just thinking back to, last year's matchup, the heroics of Lenora Sellers at the very end to steal that victory at Clemson. Yeah. Now this one's at Columbia, so another opportunity for South Carolina to pick up a win. But this game, it mattered in the stakes for the college football playoff last year because South Carolina made it to the doorstep. So here we are. If Clemson plays out like most preseason expectations think, and they're a top 8-ish type team, and South Carolina is sitting there, this win could mean a lot for Shane Beamer's playoff hopes this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. North Carolina, NC State's a great rivalry also. It's a great place to be. And Carter Finley is a really underrated stadium in the ACC. Love that place. You can bring booze. You can go out and drink in the parking lot and then go back into the game. It's great. It's fantastic. Look, I think the ACC, my favorite part of the ACC, because I think there are 2 or 3 really good teams at the top, namely Clemson, Miami, and then unsure, SMU. But what I think is interesting is the collection and balance behind those top teams is really full of a lot of teams with a lot of potential. And I think if you look at SMU, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Duke, Pittsburgh, Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, even NC State, somebody, or if not 2 or 3 of those teams, are going to jump up to the top tier and are going to compete the way SMU did last year, the way Syracuse did last year. And it's going to be really interesting because I think there's a lot of good coaches in all of those teams right there. Some guys that have been around a long time, some new guys, some up-and-comers that found success last year. It's going to be very interesting. The middle to upper half of this conference, very interesting in terms of who's going to jump up and contend. So
I think the ACC as a whole, and I know we kind of talked about it here, that there's definitely some weeks where you don't have the Louisville at Clemson type matchup. You don't have a Miami, Florida State, but you have some really quality like Pitt versus Syracuse, Duke versus Syracuse, whatever it are. Really quality, like middle
all of
class.
all of Georgia Tech's games.
Exactly. Like you have, and I don't mean that like in a bad way. I mean like
Yeah.
middle class, like really solid teams getting together and meeting. And I think it's not quite like the Big 12 where there's the chaos, but there's a close, I think, battle there. But also I think you kind of drew those tiers out. I wrote down like Stanford, Wake, Virginia, and right now I would probably put Cal in that conversation. Like those 4 feel like the bottom 4, but
everybody else could beat each other.
Right. Like it wouldn't shock me, I guess, if Cal was better than we thought. If one of the quarterbacks, you got Virginia, they were better last year. So very, very much a cluster in the middle of the conference that will be fun to sort out and to see how it plays out.
As we mentioned earlier, we kind of did this, but Georgia Tech will play Colorado, Clemson, at Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, at Duke, Syracuse, at NC State, at Boston College, Pittsburgh, and Georgia. None of those sound like marquee, high level, brand matchup like games that are going to draw huge TV ratings, but every one of those games could be interesting.
Yeah.
And good. So it's a really interesting league this year. I can't wait to see what happens. And I hope you guys enjoyed the road trip. Send us your road trips or other podcasts that copied our road trip. Do that.
Do you want to shame them publicly?
No. They're great. Okay. He was fine. Okay. They credited us. One of the Big Ten teams credited us. And so I was like, that's fine. Thank you for that. Good job. We'll credit your work, Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman. I'll name them by name. That's because I'm friends with them, but whatever. Okay.
Bruce Feldman is the best college football writer there is, Braden. So,
are you being serious or are you kidding?
No, I'm being serious.
He's the best writer.
Yes, I love his books on college football. The recruiting books that he's put out, the Miami book, like anything that he writes, I have to read.
Okay, so. I think we might. I mean, he's a very good writer. I think we might have to do like a bracket of writers on the show. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Of course, thanks for listening. 5 stars on the podcast app of choice that you are listening to, and thumbs up, notifications turned on the YouTube page. For Steven, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.